The New York Rangers just robbed the Vancouver Canucks as they have officially acquired JT Miller in a blockbuster trade that has now set the NHL's trade market for this year's trade deadline. We're going to break down everything to do with this trade and the fallout and all the players that the Rangers have gotten now in this episode of Rangers Digest. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 74% of you who watch these videos on the regular are not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's going on with the New York Rangers, it's free. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. So the New York Rangers, after weeks of talking about it at this point, non-stop speculation, rumors, reports about JT Miller. JT Miller is once again a New York Ranger. And I think, I don't want to speak for all Rangers fans, but I've been saying for the last little while, I think that this was going to happen, and I would be very happy if it happened. And I think this is a great thing for the New York Rangers, and this makes them immediately better. We know that they can't develop prospects, right? So at this point, why wouldn't you go out and trade for an impact player? They do exactly that in JT Miller. We're going to break it down. So obviously the trade broke just a little while ago. The New York Rangers received JT Miller, Erik Brannstrom, who is somebody I'm going to touch on a little bit in this video, but I'm going to make a separate video about the specific pieces coming back to the New York Rangers in another video. And Erik Brannstrom at one point was a very highly sought after defenseman in the NHL and a prospect, no longer really a prospect, but very interesting piece coming back for the New York Rangers. And again, a depth piece. And then going the other way, as rumored, right? It was very close to the rumored trade. Filip Chytil is gone. He is now a Vancouver Canuck. Victor Mancini, tough to see him go, honestly, in my eyes, because he had a great start to the season. Looks like a promising prospect. He's gone. And a conditional 2025 first-round pick. Now, report from Elliot Friedman, the draft pick is top 13 protected this year. So if the Rangers do fall out of the playoffs, they end up, there's some things going on with the lottery, or even if they're, top 13 in the draft, then, it's top 13 protected, which I think is great work by Chris Drury. I think you have to protect that pick. There's no retention on the salary. The Rangers really liked Miller and made it happen. And we know that. Chris Drury, for the last couple of weeks, I've been making videos nonstop for the last couple of weeks saying Chris Drury wants this guy. It's going to happen. All reports, all signs point to this, and it ended up happening. I am very happy about the Rangers acquiring JT Miller. And again, considering all the rumors that were coming out, Braden Schneider, Alexis Lafreniere, you had, obviously there was Mika Zibanejad earlier this year. All those rumors, right, put to bed with this and the trade itself. Listen, Filip Chytil is a great player. He's a great play driver, all of those things. But a little bit injury prone, as we've seen the last little while. And on top of that, when you're getting a first-line center back in JT Miller, an over 100-point guy last year, in return for Filip Chytil, you make that trade 10 times out of 10 in my eyes. Victor Mancini, he's a prospect. The Rangers have a tough time developing prospects. He looks like he's going to be a really good player in this league. Vancouver desperately, in return for JT Miller, needed a right shot defenseman, whether a guy who can play right now or a guy who can play in the future. So they get that with that. And you knew a first-round pick was going to be included in this trade. So I'm not honestly shocked by that too much. Now, again, as I just broke down, there's so much fan reaction out there because of this trade, obviously. And we knew that it was, probably going to get to this point. Honestly, I really did think Chris Drury was finally going to pull the trigger. I just wondered what the trade was going to look like. But I knew it was going to get to this point because JT Miller had a no movement clause. He only wanted to waive it to go to New York. You knew something was coming to a head there in Vancouver. One guy had to be moved and it was looking like JT Miller. All signs were pointing to the New York Rangers. So again, there's fan reaction on either side of things, but you get JT Miller for Filip Chytil, a guy who can't stay healthy at the end of the day, right? He does at times, but didn't really play much last year, dealing with some health issues this year. Again, Victor Mancini, an unproven prospect, has shown, promise for sure. I think very highly of Victor Mancini. When I first saw this trade, I was like, oh no, Victor Mancini. But then I look across the board and you see JT Miller and you're like, it's fine, right? A protected first, which is essentially zero value to the New York Rangers because their inability to develop. And we've been talking about this on the channel the last little while. I made a video on it earlier today about Alexis Lafreniere. And, it's not that it's zero value, but when you get an impact player like JT Miller back in return, he's going to make an impact for you right now. All for JT Miller, 100-point center, which fills the hole of whatever happened to Mika. JT Miller is immediately the New York Rangers' first line center. This is a guy who can literally turn this season around. Like the Rangers, there's a very real possibility that they make the playoffs this year at this point. Like I think there's a very real possibility. I think they actually might name a captain still this year, and we'll get to that in a second. And I've been talking about it on the channel as well, who I think it is, and I think most Rangers fans know exactly who it is. But Eric Brandstrom, a good puck-moving depth defenseman. I don't know if he's going to see much time in the lineup, but he's a good option. Injuries happen. The Rangers might make the playoffs, right? It's a good option. And again, he was very highly sought after at one point as a prospect. So, and then Jackson Dorrington, an unproven prospect. This is simply a win. Not sure how you can see it other way. If you're talking about right now, the Rangers absolutely won this trade. This is a great trade. All the rumors that were coming out about Braden Schneider, Alexei Lafreniere in return for JT Miller, this is a great return for JT Miller in my eyes. So, fantastic stuff. Less than 2 months since the hysterical, everything that was happening with Barclay Goodrow, Jacob Trouba, nobody wants to play in New York, all of that stuff. I was talking about it on the channel as well, where, I think a lot of people, you should be wary of that if you're Chris Drury, but at the same time, it is a business. If you want to play in New York, come play in New York, right? If you don't, then don't play in New York. And I think people clearly still want to play for the New York Rangers. JT Miller waived his no-trade clause to come here. So Igor Shesterkin signed for 8 more years. Will Borgen signed a contract extension for 5 years just last week. JT Miller eagerly waived his no-trade clause to go to New York because of the situation in Vancouver. And sounded like he also liked playing in Vancouver. This is from his agent, Brian Bartlett, on JT Miller's reaction to the trade. It was bittersweet. He absolutely loved his time in Vancouver. It was tough. He has good friends there, was planning on playing the rest of his contract, and really valued his time in Vancouver. I also think this is a very classy, I know it came through his agent, but I think that's a very classy thing to say after being traded, especially with all the rumors flying around about how he's the problem in the Vancouver Canucks dressing room. So obviously, nice thing to put out. Great PR move. He comes over to the Rangers. Everything's feeling good. And it looks like he might actually make it back in time to be in the lineup tomorrow. Make it back from Dallas, that should be, because the Canucks are playing in Dallas tonight, to play the Boston Bruins tomorrow afternoon at MSG. It's going to be very exciting game. And these are the Rangers lines with JT Miller. Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere. Maybe you keep that line together. I still think, Miller is your first line center. Cooley, Zibanejad, Smith. I mean, that makes no sense. You should have Miller higher. Kreider, Miller, and then whoever you want on the right wing. Edstrom, Carrick, Rempe. That, up for discretion, of course. Like, sometimes it gets changed, but that's very formidable, excuse me. That is a great lineup. I think Miller's going to be higher than that. I think he's going to be playing first line, second line. Obviously, he's going to be playing first power play unit, you would think, unless Peter Laviolette has completely lost his mind at this point. And it sounds also like Vincent Trocheck will be the future captain of the New York Rangers, or he will be the next captain, I should say, of the New York Rangers. It sounds like Vincent Trocheck, who is very close with JT Miller, was a big advocate for this deal. I've said it before, but my gut tells me Trocheck will be the next player to wear the C for the New York Rangers, and that's from Vince Mercogliano. And it sounds like the New York Rangers are hoping that JT Miller will join them tomorrow to play in Boston. Excuse me, it's not at MSG. I did say it was at MSG. It's in Boston tomorrow afternoon, so that is going to be exciting. Still to be decided. But last thing before we wrap up here, JT Miller, acquired by the New York Rangers, is a playmaking forward who combines speed, physicality, passing ability. We know what he's about. And one of the most unique skill sets in the league. Finishing has been a problem this year, but it's been strong in the past. Confrontational on and off the ice. So finishing not as good this year, but we know it has been good. There's a lot of turmoil going on in Vancouver. He asked for a leave of absence. All these things. I think he's going to figure it out in New York. I think he's going to return to form like he was last year. I think that's going to be very exciting for New York Rangers fans. And he adds that snarl. He's a dog on the puck. He loves the after the whistle stuff. He doesn't take, any BS, any of that stuff, which I think the Rangers need a little bit more of. They might end up being here down the stretch a very difficult team to play. So I think that's very exciting. They all got to lock in. He's coming from Vancouver where he was definitely not locked in. He's got to lock in. I'm excited to see if that starts tomorrow. But let me know how you feel about JT Miller officially becoming a New York Ranger again. It's going to be an exciting second half of the season. I knew Chris Drury was going to make another move. Just can't help himself. And I knew it was going to be JT Miller. He cannot help himself. So Very interesting move here. But let me know what you think about the trade. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with everything New York Rangers. We're going to have tons more content on the fallout of the JT Miller trade and the rest of the season. So again, if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.